There's an Australian jailed in China for 4 years, close to 5, and he claims the embassy ignored his desperate calls for medical assistance during horror Beijing prison ordeal. Okay.
This is way worse than it even sounded.
Yeah,
somehow.
This doesn't sound so bad.
No, it sounds bad, but it was worse.
Let me set this up for you. I'm in a fairly unique position here because of my status as being the first YouTuber in China, okay? I laid the groundwork for a lot of people to follow. I'm also a reason why a lot of people moved to China or visited China.
Yep.
And I very often got people sending me messages asking me things like, hey, you know, I'm planning to go to China. What should I prepare? Or they were like, hey, I'm in China, but, you know, I'm a little stuck. Can you help me with this or that? The next thing. One thing I don't talk about are the amount of times I've been reached out by people who got into trouble and needed help. And unfortunately, I couldn't do anything as a YouTuber, but people would be like, I'm in trouble. The police have caught me because I was smoking weed or whatever, you know?
Or something completely innocuous.
Yeah, or I got, you know, picked up in a raid on my school because, you know, my school didn't give me a proper visa. I can think of at least about a dozen instances where things have gone very, very wrong for foreigners in China.
Including tourists,
by
the way, not just people that live there.
Yeah, you know, like that tourist who was smoking weed like a week before he came.
Yeah.
And he just happened to, like, pretty much the first night he was there, he went to a bar and they did that raid and they did the hair test. He got locked up for like 2.5 weeks and deported and had to go through all that shit.
Jail that's tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is,
good luck, guys.
In China, it seems great until it's not.
Yes.
Okay? Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face, as Mike Tyson said.
Yep.
And China has no regard for human rights. There's no rule of law. It's disgusting. And so what happened with this particular guy, we're going to let him explain himself, but we'll get into a bit more detail because I read up on it quite a bit. So let's just start with him.
Trying to fix your iPhone turned into almost 5 years in jail.
Lei, good morning. Before I confuse any of your viewers, I'm an Australian, but I've been out of the country for almost 2 decades, so I've lost my Australian accent.
Okay, so we've dealt with the markets before in China. Now, bear in mind, this happened in Beijing, guys. So you might think of this kind of incident happening in a small town or something, you know, but this was the capital of Beijing, which is, the capital of China, generally quite friendly to foreigners. Okay, lots of foreigners go there. You know, that's the big tourist site. That's China wants this to be like their image of China to the world.
Like their Potemkin village.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The big ones, Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. You can usually, as a foreigner, get away with being a bit of a weirdo and you're left alone and you're okay because they want this good image of China, right? This guy was running a very successful street fashion company.
Clothing company,
yeah. Clothing company. So he's one of those long haulers. You know, he's got a company. He's been in China. He knows how it works. You know, he's not a fresh off the boat guy. And he went to go get his iPhone repaired at a market. Now, you get these electronics markets all over China, and it's much cheaper to get your phone fixed there than through Apple. So if you go to Apple, they'll be like, oh, that's going to cost you like pretty much the cost of the phone because they want you to get a new one.
Sure.
You go to these little markets and they're like, okay, that'll cost like $50 or something. They'll fix it for you. He took his phone in to get fixed. They agreed on a price and then the shop just wouldn't get back to him. So when he went to go and confront them like, hey, where's my phone? Then they suddenly demanded a much higher price. And then they tried to actually extort him out of his phone. Now, you can 100% agree with me that this is quite commonplace.
Oh, it's par for the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you do get very honest repair guys. I made a video about when I got my MacBook repaired, and he actually made me write my name on every component. He opened it up. The batteries, write my name with like a silver marker. My name on the CPU, on the this and that, on the RAM chips and everything, because they soldered them off and stuff. He said, just to make sure that like when I repair it, you can see I haven't stolen any of your stuff. Okay, that's just how it goes. And when you're a foreigner in China, you're always at a disadvantage when you go to any kind of haggling type market thing. So they tried to extort him out of his phone. He's like, I'm not having any of this. Grabbed his phone, walked out. But the security guards cornered him, beat him up, pepper sprayed him, tasered him. He got set and he fought back, which was his biggest mistake. Fought back against them, and then they nabbed him, and then they accused him of being an armed robber.
They said he had a taser and pepper spray.
Yeah, they said
with no evidence.
The shop owner said that he came with a taser and pepper spray to steal the phone
And they won.
Yeah,
Because in China, if you're a foreigner, you will always lose.
every single time. By the way, the phone that he apparently went with as pepper spray and taser to steal is the one in this photo that was taken before he went to go get it repaired.
Oh, dang.
Anyway, let's listen to his story.
So tell us about what happened to you.
I very simply just went to get my phone from a repair store. We agreed on a price. I insisted that I would prefer to get it repaired from this store in the 258 electronic market rather than taking it to Apple. And we agreed on a price. And then 5 days later, when I hadn't heard from the phone vendor, I went to the store and he had changed the price. And there was another person there that was essentially trying to finesse me out of the phone. And when I left with the phone, I got attacked by security. I got set upon, pepper sprayed, tasered, Fort Well, and was later arrested and charged with armed robbery.
Armed
And
robbery.
the police didn't believe you. And even at the trial, there was no evidence, no legal representation until you signed a guilty plea.
Once I was detained in the detention center, it was made pretty simple to me that there's no such thing as you went to the phone store to get your phone repaired. There's only the material facts as per this confession. And once you've signed this confession, we will then provide you with legal representation. You can speak to your family. You can essentially have an easier time. I was given a leniency agreement, and I was told that if I argued the material facts, that I would essentially be there for 10 to 12 years, or I could sign the leniency agreement, admit that I went to the store to rob the phone, and they would give me 4 years.
You were also violently assaulted in police custody and held in detention for almost a year with no charge.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. This happens, and it's happened to a friend of mine, and it's happened to quite a few foreigners that have reached out to me, is when you get into an altercation, or if there's any kind of dispute, and it can be small, it could be something like you're having an argument over paying for a meal or something, it doesn't matter. If you get picked up by the police, there is a good chance that you could just be thrown in detention for an indeterminate amount of time until they decide to charge you.
They don't have to give you a reason.
Nope.
It could be years.
I mean, think about what happened to the Michaels.
Yeah.
They
didn't know
how long was it? How long
yeah.
was it until they actually came out and charged them with something?
Yeah, years.
So, they can hold you pretty much indefinitely until they decide to concoct something up to charge you with. So it's very dangerous. Without rule of law, it's very dangerous.
There's no rule of law in China.
Yeah. And that's something people have to understand. If you're going to go there, you have to know that, okay? I'm not trying to scare people off here, but you do have to know that. In places, in civilized countries like the UK or America, if you're picked up by the cops, number one, they will give you the courtesy of at least notifying your next of kin. You usually get a phone call. If not, they probably contact them for you.
Right.
In China, they don't allow you to contact your family.
No.
You have no contact with the outside world. Sometimes people have gone missing for years without their family knowing where they are, what happened to them. It's happened to people that I know in China. They've gone missing for years or weeks at a time. None of their friends know where they are. None of their family know where they are. Their housemates don't know what happened to them. They're just poof, gone.
Not to mention if China needs a political hostage at that time.
It's just, it's scary, man.
Yeah.
You have no control over your destiny.
No.
And so a lot of people, TikTok refugees and so on, they're all about my rights. This, the cops can't search me and I'm not going to give permission, this and that. Remember that in China, you don't have any rights. No. If they pick you up for whatever reason, you're at the mercy of what they decide to do with you, which is what happened to this guy.
Right.
Let's see what else he has to say.
Yeah, when at the arresting police station, I was beaten pretty badly, and I was adamant that I could just use my phone and call a lawyer or call somebody that I knew in Beijing, and I was refused. I was told that this is not Australia, that you'll pay for what you've done here in China, and that essentially you just have to cooperate and stop talking so much. And they beat me half to a pulp.
A consular officer actually told you that China doesn't see prisoners as humans and therefore they don't have rights. Is that true?
That's correct. And that information was relayed to my family when they finally got in contact with my family within that first year that I was in the detention center, I was told that China does have human rights, but you're a prisoner and prisoners don't have rights in China. So I essentially spent almost 1,700 days living as a non-human in the Chinese legal system.
Tell us about your ordeal in prison, because the prison labor system is highly exploitative. You were
Yeah, this is a very important part of this video.
Yeah.
We've just spoken about how China and Russia tried to say that America took advantage of prisoners, forced them to go fight fires, right? Sounds horrific the way they put it forward. Of course, it's not true. But we do know that forced labor is something that happens in China. And it would shock you if you realize just how much of the things you're buying off of Temu and whatever else is a result of this. During COVID, a lot of the COVID masks and those swabs and all that were made by forced labor. And I'd just like you to know where this stuff comes from. And this, what he explains, is very important. So let's listen.
paid $1 for 8 months of work. When I first read that, I thought it must be a typo.
When they brought me the piece of paper and it said 4.2 renminbi, I thought that they were paying me 4.2 renminbi an hour. But I found out that for the 22 days a month, 8 hours a day, for the 8-month period, I'd been paid 4.2 renminbi total.
I mean, 4.2 renminbi, what's that in US dollars?
It's like 70 cents.
70 cents? Okay, for 8 months of work, 22-day months, you know. Can you believe that? So when you want to talk about forced labor, I mean, come on. Like 8 months of work, I don't know, man. Like that cannot be justified.
No.
You can't. What are you going to use that 70 cents on or whatever?
37 cents now, apparently.
37 cents.
I was doing old calculations.
Yeah, so 37 cents for doing forced labor for 8 months. That's ridiculous. So
Yes.
that's forced labor.
Sorry, about 50 cents.
55 cents. Okay, all right, 55 cents. Let's see what he was making, by the way.
And we were working for a medical company that was exporting their goods all around the world, and we were not given any protective equipment, and we were not allowed to not work, because everything that you do is dependent on receiving your labor points. So even if you say, okay, I don't want to risk my health and work for $1 for 9 months, then you'll be punished. So it's essentially slave labor.
So they're exporting medical goods to the rest of the world under slave labor.
Well, think about it. He said a medical company.
With no protection.
So
they were
look,
wearing no protection.
You wonder why, like, Chinese companies have an upper hand. Think about it. The Chinese government says, "Oh, you need to make this because this is going to make China stronger in this field.
Yes.
We'll just give you a bunch of free labor.
Yes.
We've got all these prisoners. They're going to come work for you.
Yes, correct.
You know what I mean? Isn't it awful?
It is.
What's incredible is that you've managed to smuggle out 54 pieces of your diaries in jail on COVID masks written in tiny print. Why did you do that?
A couple of reasons. I felt that I was living through something that was important enough that needed to be shared with the greater community. I think that China as a country presents an image of itself as being developed and advancing and being at the cutting edge of many things. But what I was witnessing was a very archaic way of treating people, and a narrative that was on point with what people have always thought about China with their human rights abuses. And even more than that was that there was a lot of people in the prison around me that didn't even understand their sentence, were isolated from their family, from their embassies, people that hadn't spoken to their family for 6 years. One of my brothers from Papua New Guinea, his parents, he was arrested in 2013. When I got out of prison and contacted them, I was the first person to explain to them, your son has been charged with a life sentence. Your son will not be coming home for another 14 years. So I took that responsibility pretty seriously.
Very sad to hear that Dr. Yang Hengjun.
So, I mean, that just proves what I said earlier. That one of his, cellmates, his parents didn't know what had happened to him. I mean, imagine that. Like, just it's so tragic and disgusting. It's so opaque. And you see, that's another win for China, is they keep this kind of stuff opaque. You don't get to hear about that. You always hear about these hard luck stories about like convicts in America and, like, oh, they locked them up for like weed smoking and it's unfair or something like that. You get to see all this like prison dramas and all this. You get an inside look and you can then have sympathy for the prisoners, or you can at least know why they're there, or you can say the system is corrupt, or you can say these are the problems with it. In China, they're like, it doesn't happen. They take people off the streets, they disappear them. Everyone thinks, oh, China's so safe, it's so great. It's not. It's just you don't hear about the bad stuff. You don't get to see the bad stuff. You don't get to see how bad and horrible the system is. I mean, I'm pretty sure anybody watching this can realize that this is a really screwed up situation, all right? And look, both you and I had situations where we were very close to being this man in China. And anyone who's living in China,
It's almost always physical altercations.
Yeah.
I got in a fight with a taxi driver to protect my wife.
Yeah.
He slapped her in the face, so I punched him.
Yeah.
That almost led to my demise.
Dude, I know a guy who did punch a taxi driver and did go to jail. You were lucky. But yeah, you were just lucky.
I was lucky.
Yeah, I was lucky too in my situation where I got beat up by that like whole bloody shop or whatever. Yeah, that was really, really sus. But I mean, anyone who's in China who gets into any kind of legal dispute, I mean, we know that guy who opened a gym.
Yeah.
And like with a Chinese...
He's Australian, right?
Yeah, I believe he's Australian, with a Chinese business partner, and things didn't work out. And then when he tried to leave, his Chinese business partner had told the government that he stole the money. So he wasn't allowed to leave China, and he still hasn't. Still there.
Can't leave.
No, he's still there. There's all this kind of stuff that goes on. It doesn't get enough international press. People don't see how dangerous it is, and you're potentially ruining your life if you go to China. You have dealings with China. But you know what? It's by design. It's by design, man. Anyway, you get the idea. The story is linked below. Absolutely worth checking out. Okay?
Yeah.
This poor guy he can serve as a reminder.
Yes.
And we have a couple of things that you put up here.
So inmates shackled for weeks on end for breaking rules. Some inmates haven't spoken to their family for 6 years. People whose family members who have died were only allowed to standard 5-minute phone call to contact the outside world. Inmates beaten to near death and electrocuted by police up to 30 to 40 times in one sitting can confirm. In the police stations, even before you go get into sentencing, they will hang you up and whack you with sticks and beat you to a bloody pulp.
Yep.
People go blind from it.
Yep.
Just for like very minor things, by the way, or even perceived crimes.
Yep.
They were pepper sprayed in the eyes multiple times after they objected to not receiving medical care or drinking water. People who have death... By the way, these are foreigners in this prison, not just Chinese.
Yeah, the Taiwanese people, and it's like
Australians
it's a mix,
and Americans. People who have death reprieve sentences are chained around their legs the entire time. Many people stay chained for 3 or more years. Zero medical care is given to nationals from countries such as Nigeria or Liberia, as their embassy never visits or calls them.
Yeah, I get it.
This is the reality of China. This is a nuts ass country. We lived there. We understood a lot of the risks, and it was never not scary. But when you leave and look at it with 2020 hindsight, it's like, yo, this place was messed up.
Yeah.
He was forced to wear a mask every day during COVID, but he was only given 1 mask per week.
That's gotta suck.
That's the scheme.
Yes, you need those cool bursts.
Cool bursts.
Yeah.
Overcrowding, 20 to 30 people per cell. Constant sleep deprivation for having to do night duty or 2 hours every night. We know that the lights were always on. They would, I believe one of the Michaels had eye problems because they left the lights blinding him all the time.
Well, and they also didn't let him have his glasses. No, that's one thing that they do in China is they never turn these those very cheap rubbish fluorescent, those fluorescent buzzing, which, by the way, are bad for your eyes anyway.
Yes.
Because they're constantly flickering at a high hertz or whatever.
Yes.
They leave those on 24/7.
Yeah.
No segregation for HIV, TB, or hepatitis transmission. Those with death reprieve sentences were chained around their legs with 7-kilogram irons the entire time. Many stay chained for 3 or more years.
This is like a cartoon image of prison, but China does it in real life.
Yeah.
Those ball and
yeah,
chain,
exactly, like wearing stripes. Yeah.
No shopping due to COVID. So this guy, Matthew is his name?
Yeah.
Was without basic amenities like a toothbrush, toilet paper, or soap. And he had to shower with dishwashing detergent. Lymphatic infections developed due to the filthy environment. It's disgusting in there, by the way.
Yep.
And the food sometimes has maggots. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yep.
Horrible conditions.
This is in the other prison.
Yeah.
12 to a cell, slept with lights on, used thin blankets, and had insufficient food. Slave labor. He was paid equivalent of $1 Australian for 8 months' work. Some of the labor include making Chinese medical treatment cups, moxa sticks, and foot soaks for export. They also made electronic components for government contracts. Inmates had to do labor in order to change the sentence, but it was extremely difficult. Even for perfect behavior, you could only get 4 months deducted after 7 years. Warders were using the Taiwanese inmates to control the African inmates. The Taiwanese were extradited from Spain for telephone fraud and spoke both English and Chinese. Inmates used as photo props to show they had computers and cans for Coca-Cola, both just for show. That makes a lot of sense.
Very North Korea, isn't it?
Yeah, get them to like, oh, look, we treat them well, take photos, and that's it.
Yeah.
Done. So this was his ordeal. 504 days in Beijing, number 3 detention center, 900 plus days in Beijing, number 2 prison, total of 4 years, 9 months, and 3 days. He went in weighing 72 kilograms, came out 57 kilograms from solitary confinement.
Wow.
What's this? Complaints against Australian embassy officers. He wasn't okay. I just, rather than reading all of this off, I'd like to say that I have a suspicion. Matthew, if you're watching this, correct me if I'm wrong. I have a suspicion that Matthew would be the kind of person who would be arguing with me on Twitter right now to stop smearing China.
I don't know.
I just have a feeling. That's why I said correct me if I'm wrong. He had a well-to-do business. He's in Beijing, the most cosmopolitan. This is usually what you see. So you got a foreigner who's kind of got it switched on. He's doing very well. He's successful. He loves his life in China. He thinks China's the bee's knees because it's given him this opportunity. And when somebody goes and says, hey, listen, China has issues, they immediately don't want their little bubble to be destroyed, or, you know, they don't want their lifestyle to be impacted somehow by the fact that someone else is actually showing people that there are problems with China. And so they usually go on the attack. I get this a lot. And I'm just hazarding a guess that he probably was that type of person before this incident, and he's probably now more aligned with the way we think.
Yeah,
What do you think?
It's not fair though, because
I said that's why I said. Correct me if I'm wrong.
For
I
sure.
could be completely wrong. I'm just saying there's a possibility.
True.
And I'm going to tell you right now that the kind of people that do go on the attack all the time and on the defense for the Communist Party of China, on the defense of China, like irrationally, they all have the possibility to be this guy and to fall afoul of the Chinese government, because it's actually very easy.
Well, you don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
You can actually be like, oh, well, actually, that guy's from Canada. We're supposed to hate Canada right now, so let's go after him. I used a Chinese AI.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I asked them about some influencers. I wanted to say, which influencers aligned with Chinese government values? See what it would say. Yeah. And it actually, when I asked it, like, which YouTubers are against the CCP's ideals, it wouldn't say us. It wouldn't say any of the other, you know, the China Uncensored or any of the other big guys. It said some guy that's very pro-China.
Weird. Because
of one minor weird little thing, which was not even a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's funny that they threw him under the bus to this 1.4 billion people that use this every day.
Yeah.
Because of one tiny innocuous thing. And it shows you, you can literally... Remember that one YouTuber, Xin Dan Dan?
Yeah.
He had a song in the background, which his editor put in, which said something about Fu Manchu or something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he got completely...
Canceled.
His life was ruined.
Yeah. And he was the biggest... He's this
guy.
This guy. Yeah.
You know, this was a perfect example.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway,
yeah. This was just very important. We thought that we had to bring it up to show everyone,
Yeah.
especially in this current climate.
Yeah.
I remember you left my...
Oh, come on! No! You better not be drinking hotel water.
you
son.
never-
You're gonna die.
Now let's try
It's
and see
for
what
a
happens when we
pool.
boil.
It's a pool strip. It's a freaking pool strip.
Yeah.
Oh no, it did change. The orange is...
Dude, you stuck the strip into boiling hot water. Like, you get this broccoli hairdo and he's like, oh, wow, it's amazing. I'm healthier here than I was in Netherlands. That's a lie. You know, I wonder what's going to happen next, because this just keeps getting stupider and stupider.
Your hey chocolate, ma?
Oh, did you
he
see how he
fake put
tried
it
to
on.
fake? He's like, made it worse. Like, can I find the chocolate? Oh man, look at that. Oh.
can almost sing it. When I take a breath, you fill up my life.